Hey everybody, welcome to this month's virtual chef dinner here at Amerigo. As you can see, I've got some company here with me tonight to cook along. This is our Thanksgiving edition, and Gnash has been super cool enough to join us along. He's hungry, so he's going to help me as much as we can with those pawls to cook some great food for y'all. So we've got a great meal planned. When I was thinking about what we could do for Thanksgiving, he's trying to steal my potatoes, or y'all's potatoes. We couldn't do turkey for, in 45 minutes. That's not long enough. So one of my favorites from growing up is Cornish game hens, and that's going to be a great little replica turkey for everybody to get a little practice on before the big day. So first things first, kind of before we do all these, let's make sure we have our ovens on to 425. Let's make sure we got all of our equipment out, cutting board, knives, pots, pans, all the stuff that's on your list. And while y'all are doing that, I'm going to kind of show everybody how to make the cocktail. So give us a second and I'll show you how to do a drink.
Hey folks, I'm James Stevens, the General Manager here at Amerigo on West End. I was tasked to come up with a fall-inspired cocktail, so this is what we have. This is basically Thanksgiving in a cup. I decided to use Irish whiskey. I personally like Jameson, so that's what we're going with today, but you can do whatever you want. I'm going to do 1.5 ounces of that. Right here comes Thanksgiving in a cup. It is going to be apple cider, pumpkin puree, carrot, and orange juice. Found that at the turnip truck. Cinnamon, nutmeg, pinch of allspice. Pretty easy. Add your ice. Don't have to get crazy with it. Pour that right there. Nice finishing touch was a little brown sugar and salt on the rim. If you don't want to get into all this, you can just as easily pour it over the rocks. But cheers, y'all. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
All right, before we do any of our actual prep, the first thing we need to do is go ahead and get our hens into the oven, because those are going to take the longest to cook, So if we want to eat everything in a reasonable amount of time tonight, that's what we got to do. So again, I got some beautiful little Cornish game hens. They look like little chickens. We're going to set that down in the bottom of the pan, and we're going to set our other one breast side up down in the bottom of the pan, and we're going to set that to the side right here. Everybody gets one onion in your kit. We're going to take the top and the bottom off. You think you could hold a knife in that? No? Okay. A little crying. Yeah, they're strong. It's all right. I'm surprised you. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to peel this, take the top and the bottom off, and then just a little rough cut, just like this. And then in half, and in half. Cool. So now we're going to take that and spread the onions kind of just around our hens here. And what that's going to do is it's going to help them kind of stay upright while you're cooking, but it's also going to help flavor everything. It's going to smell great in your house soon enough, I promise. Okay, so we got onions in here. Everybody got 2 ramekins of olive oil. I'm going to take the first one here, and you're going to use about half of it, and just a little drizzle right on top of each bird. He wasn't kidding about the onions. They're strong. All right, and a nice sprinkle of salt, Salt Bay, and pepper here. Don't be shy, because you're just seasoning the outside of the bird, so we're trying to get that seasoning nice and heavy, so that way when you take a bite, it's going to be seasoned all the way through. All right, so we're going to pop these in our 425-degree oven. Say a little prayer. All right. All right, so now that we've got our hens in the oven, let's do some of our prep. So the first thing we need to get going is our vinaigrette for our salad course. So bacon vinaigrette, key component. Pig, yeah, I know, right? So we're gonna take our strips of bacon that we have right here, and we're just gonna cut them in nice little lardons like this. Can you keep up? Okay, so we have our bacon. I've got a nice small saute pan here. We're gonna put that in and go ahead and turn that on our oven back here. Hopefully. There we go. So now the bacon's in the pan. We're gonna cook that until it's crispy, but do not throw away the fat because that's gonna be part of the oil necessity for our bacon vinaigrette. So, speaking on the bacon vinaigrette, I have sent everybody a deli container with a little bit of olive oil, the red wine vinegar, and some mustard in there. So once our bacon is done cooking, we're gonna take all the fat and everything, dump it straight into this container with a little salt and pepper, and we'll shake, and our vinaigrette will be done. But I'll show you that here in a few minutes. So let's get to our next key component here, butternut squash. So everybody's gonna get a different piece of butternut squash because these squash are rather large, and I can't send everybody a whole one. Everybody doesn't need a whole one. So you might have a top piece, you might have a bottom piece, you might have one in the middle, but what we're gonna do is peel them. So I'm gonna cut the tip off this, just like that. Then I'm gonna take my peeler here and just peel the outsides. A little long ways, make it a little easier. Butternut squash is great during the winter. They hold well in your pantry, so you can buy one and leave it for 3 weeks and it's still gonna be okay. All right. Our squash is peeled. Sweet. So now we're gonna cut it. So at this point, you can cut these in large pieces, small pieces, and roast them however you want. For me, for y'all, for the ease of this dinner, we're gonna do a little bit thinner piece. So we're just gonna cut this about 1/4 inch, maybe a little thicker. Why? You don't know, I know, but I do. But you're gonna tell me how it is. Okay, so we've got our slices. Now we're gonna come back and make cuts the opposite way so we can dice the squash up. All right there. Just like that. Look how beautiful that looks. And then we're gonna take this one and do the same thing. There we go. So that is our squash diced up for our salad. So here in a second, when our bacon is done cooking and we pour our bacon fat and everything into here, we're actually gonna use the same pan with that bacon grease to roast this squash in. So as soon as this is cooked, we'll put that in there. Okay, so now we can go ahead and finish up our last little bit of prep that we have to do so we can eat. Tomatoes for our first course here. I talk about this every time we have a dinner, so I'm gonna do it again. The best way to cut a tomato, you have the little brown spot on the top where it was attached to the plant. You always wanna cut through the top of that because then that is gonna give you the most surface area for all your tomato, for all those nice juices to come out and help flavor your salad. So we're gonna take all these tomatoes and we're gonna cut them right in half. And these are about the last time of year that you'll see me use tomatoes on one of these dinners because they're getting mealy and out of season. All right. A few more here. I cut my finger off. See, you got protection. You got those nice long claws for when you had an accident. Yeah. I got a friend like that. His was a meat slicer. All right. So our bacon, nice and crispy, good amount of fat here. So we're just gonna pull it to the side, let it cool down for just a second before we add it to our deli container for our vinaigrette. So while we're doing that, or while that's cooling down, we're gonna go ahead and prep our potatoes for mashed potatoes. Everybody's got some russets. You might have 2 in your kit. You might have 3, depending upon the size. But I like mashed potatoes, and I'm making these today, so we have 3. We're going to peel them. You don't have to. I like skins in my mashed potatoes, but I also like them without, and so today I'm doing them without. If anybody's curious about my peeler, because it's fast, it's called a speed peeler. You can get them on Amazon. 4 of them for like $7. The best $7 you can spend on a peeler, or 4 peelers. I'm fast, aren't I? All right, last one. I'm also Irish, so I'm very at home around the potato. All right, got our potatoes peeled. Now I got a pot of water sitting back behind me. It is cold water, because you always start vegetables that grow in the ground with cold water if you want to cook them. Carrots, potatoes, turnips, things like that. If they grow above the ground to blanch them, you start in boiling water, i.e. asparagus, broccoli, things like that. So we're going to move our scrap to the side here. We're going to grab our water. I washed my potatoes before I peeled them, so they're not dirty, but if you didn't, this would be a good time to wash them. So we're just going to cut it in half, and then cut them into about 4 or 8 chunks here, about a 1/2 inch wide. Right into our pot of water. And then a key thing on making homemade mashed potatoes, you have to heavily season your water. It's so much better to season your water than it is to season your mashed potatoes afterwards. So we're going to take a good healthy 2 tablespoons, maybe 3, of salt in with our potatoes. And they're going to go on medium-high. Okay, so now we've got those working. Our hens are in the oven. Now we've got our vinaigrette here. And again, it has mustard, red wine vinegar, and olive oil already in here. We want it with all this fat that's left in here. Oh yeah. And all the bacon pieces. Because who doesn't love bacon? Do you love? Yeah, there we go. I didn't know if that was in your diet or not, but you're a carnivore, so. Okay, so now there's just a little bit of fat left in this pan. So we're going to take our butternut squash here, and a little bit of pepper, and a little bit of salt, and the remaining olive oil that we used on the hens. Give that a little toss, and we're going to pop this right in the oven with our hens. Okay. Okay, you ready for the last little bit of prep? Me too. Everybody got a whole pound of butter. I know that is very crazy to think about, but we're going to use it in 3 different places. So we're going to go ahead and unwrap this, and we're going to cut it right in half, and then in half again, and in half again. Okay, so for our mashed potatoes, which are going to be mostly butter, we're going to take one of these. I know. And we're going to cut it right in half, and we're going to reserve that to the side. That's for our mashed potatoes. Then we're going to take this next one. We're going to cut it into quarters, because here in a minute, we're going to go put those on top of the hens in the oven, right? Now, for the third chunk, when we put the butter on top of our hens, we're going to put our asparagus in the same pan, and I'll show that to everybody here in a minute. And we're going to take that butter and lay it on top of the asparagus. Again, I'm very sorry about all the butter, but butter is bad as flavor. Okay, and then we're going to reserve this last little piece if I decide that we need a little bit more creaminess in the mashed potatoes. If not, you're welcome. You get a little piece of butter. So That's all cut up, so we're going to set this over here on the stove. Everybody's asparagus that you got should already be trimmed all the way down. And what I mean by that is I've taken it and already cut the bottom portion of asparagus tip or bottoms off. The reason you do this is from here down, they get really woody. So as somebody that doesn't like chewing on, herbivore stuff, we like the softer parts of the asparagus. So cut those bottom parts off, especially on fatter ones, for a much tenderer asparagus. So we've got those prepped. Those will go in our pan. We've got our arugula ready for our salad. We got our blue cheese and our walnuts, and we'll use those here in a few minutes. So it's about time that we move to the stovetop and I show you how to cook some brown gravy and get ready to eat. All right, ready? All right, here we go. Okay, so now we've kind of moved over here to the flat cooktop. Potatoes are boiling away, which is great. So now it's time to make some gravy real quick. So remember that butter I told y'all we had extra of? We're going to take half of that chunk and we're going to go into a saucepan here over about medium heat. And everybody's got a little cayenne pepper and dried rosemary. Go ahead and drop that in there as well. Okay, so our butter is melting for our roux that we're going to make right here. While that's melting, let's check on our Cornish game hens here. All right. Oh yeah. So we're going to pull these out, and it smells good, doesn't it? We're going to take our asparagus here, and we're going to lay them around our birds. Remember all that butter I was talking about? We're going to take butter, 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 more butter, even more butter, and more butter, and more butter. Okay, now don't burn myself and grab my hot hand. And we're going to go back in the oven to finish cooking this for about another 15 minutes or so. So the best thing at this point for everybody, if you don't have one, it was on the equipment list, either a digital thermometer or some sort of thermometer to check the internal temperature. This is the first video we've done where I've actually suggested you having one of these, but when it comes to whole chickens, hens, things like that, you really don't want to guess if it's done or not. So one of these, it's worth the 15 bucks. So our butter and spices are nice and melted. Smells good. Now we have flour, because again we're making roux, because that's what's going to thicken our gravy. So we're going to use about a tablespoon or so of flour here, and we're going to whisk that in. Yep. Make sure there's no clumps. Looks good. Now we're going to take our beef stock that we have here. Yeah. And we're going to add that in. Add a little bit. Stir to incorporate that flour. And then add a little more. Stir a little more. And then add the rest right on in. Cool. Just like that. Now we're going to continue to watch this, because here's a little science for y'all and for you. Flour and roux drops out of suspension of a liquid at about 180 degrees. So right now we're not that hot, so it's fine. But at about 180 degrees, that flour is going to want to fall to the bottom. It's going to want to burn and stick, and that's not good eats. So got to watch it, got to stay on top of it, and kind of whisk it every couple minutes to make sure you aren't burning anything. And if you watch it intensely like that, I'm sure that we are going to be great. So again, we're just stirring that around here, and we're going to check on our potatoes. So the easiest way to check on a potato, I always like using the probe from my thermometer, and it's hard. So a few more minutes on that, and we'll be ready to go. So our gravy is boiling over here, which is good. I've turned down the heat to medium-low just so it's at a nice little simmer. And it's just going to continue to thicken up as we let it reduce a little while we're waiting on everything else. But while we're waiting on that, our potatoes are ready. So we're going to turn our water off here. So I've got a colander in the sink. I'm going to make the mashed potatoes with a spoon just to show everybody if that's all you have. you can still have mashed potatoes. But if you have a potato ricer or a potato masher or anything like that, you can absolutely use that. So I'm gonna go to the sink. All right, so we've got our drained potatoes here. We're gonna take all that butter, a good pinch of black pepper, and we're not gonna add any salt until we taste it for the first time because we seasoned our water. So we've got our potatoes here, and we're just gonna mash them up. You notice we have not added any heavy cream yet because we wanna get them mashed up before we start sloshing around. My potatoes are semi-mashed up. So here's the thing. I gave everybody about 8 ounces of heavy cream. Depending upon if you cooked your potatoes correctly, will depend upon how much of this heavy cream you use. If you overcook your potatoes and they're a little waterier, you're not going to use as much of this. So it's a consistency thing. So I'm going to add some cream and I'm going to show you what the final consistency needs to be. But that might be less or that might be more depending upon how hard you boiled your potatoes, how long you cooked them, etc., etc. So I'm going to add some heavy cream here. I'm going to go with about half of mine. Stay. And gently, yeah, perfect. Stir that in. Now, we can see these look a little loose right now, but that's okay because we're not going to eat these for another 10 minutes, and we're going to turn the heat back on them to warm them back up. So that starch is going to sit there and kind of absorb that cream. So this is what we're looking for right now, that kind of just barely hold on to a spoon. That's beautiful. Okay, so those are chilling. Our gravy, you can if you want to. I'm not responsible for the dry cleaning, Bill. Okay. Now let's check on our squash here. Oh yeah, beautiful. So everybody can see here, we got nice caramelization on our squash, and that's going to be beautiful on our salad. So I'm just going to kick that to the back so it stays nice and warm. Now we're going to take a look at our chickens, which have about 3 to 5 more minutes. So we're gonna get our salad together. You ready? All right, so we're ready to plate our salad up here so we can be ready once our entree's ready. So what we're gonna do is, everybody's got a bag of arugula, which is a very nice peppery green. It goes really well with the sweet squash, and that squash does get a little sweeter when you roast it like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a healthy pinch of pepper here and just a small pinch of salt and our vinaigrette that we have where our bacon and everything's already in here, right? Lid's closed, just shake. Shake, 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 shake. Now, the mustard in here is going to help hold that oil and vinegar together in suspension, so it's kind of creamy. See? So now we're just going to pull a little of the bacon pieces out with a pair of tongs or a spoon, and then drizzle a little of that vinaigrette. Maybe not all of it, just because I don't think it needs it. And then we're going to lightly toss that around. Beautiful. Then we're going to throw our tomatoes in. Come here. And we're gonna toss that around nice and gentle like. And then we're gonna plate. So we're gonna take half the greens, good amount of tomatoes there, just like that. Okay. Now we're gonna take some of our walnuts, sprinkle those right on top. And we've got our blue cheese crumbles here. And blue cheese and bacon, if you don't know, is amazing. So we got that. Now the key component, our beautiful roasted butternut squash. And we're just gonna sprinkle a few pieces of that around. Okay, and that is our first course salad. So that hot cold component is really delicious. Hopefully. Okay, so we're gonna turn our potatoes back on, medium low, just to get a little heat underneath that. If you had a lid for your pot, that would have been a good thing too, but I didn't. So what are you gonna do? So we've got our hens that are ready to come out of this oven. Oh yeah, it's hot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a spoon, tilt our pan to the side, and just kind of give it a quick baste with all that butter, just like that. Now I'm gonna talk to everybody about to see if these things are done or not. So I know mine are done just because I've been doing this long enough to know that these are cooked. But as I talked about earlier, for everybody else, a digital thermometer or a regular biotherm, it doesn't matter, just something that can tell temperature, because you're looking for an internal temperature of about 160 degrees. If you want to pull them at 155, 157, they will carry over. But what I do is, and it's just like on a chicken or anything else, you want to test basically right here in the leg joint. And I'm going to stick my probe in here. There we go. Get it. There it is. And we are at 161 degrees there. And 170 there. So we actually went over by a couple minutes. So this is what the end products look like. Let's show you how to get them on a plate. So I'm gonna move this very hot pan right here in front of you, Nash. Don't eat it or burn it. Okay. Beautiful. We got our potatoes here. We're gonna do a nice dollop of those right in the middle. And then we've got our roasted asparagus that have been roasted in that chicken juice and onions and butter, and I know, right? We're gonna place those right like that. And then we're gonna take one of our chickens. A pair of tongs really helps here. And we're gonna come and we're gonna set that bad boy just like that. I know that seems like a lot of food, but don't forget, there's bones in this. So, now we've got our gravy, and we're gonna just go right over the top, just like that. And that, Nash, is your lunch today. I know, right? Okay, so just another minute of everybody's time before you eat. I want to talk about the dessert. So, if you want to right now, leave your oven on, but kick it down to about 350 degrees. And your maple raisin bread pudding, that is one of my absolute favorites. 350 in your oven for about 5 to 7 minutes. It'll get nice and crispy and toasty on the outside. Take it out, pour that creme anglaise right over the top of it, and enjoy it, but only after the dishes are done. So, on behalf of Amerigo and the Preds and Nash, thank you all so much for joining us for this month's virtual dinner and for the final one of the year, more than likely. So glad we got to do it with Nash, and thank you all so much for joining us this year.